Welcome back. Amazing work. So you're probably wondering what the hell is the point of all of this? I know I would be. So one of the reasons we want to meditate, we want to journal, is because we want to see the contents of our thoughts. The thoughts are not who you are. The mind is this never-ending cycling journey that just keeps going over and over and over and over. And the mind are these thoughts that just like take you past future, past future, past future. And they do everything to stay out of the right now. But the mind is not who you are. In fact, we have a second part of the human brain that's called the spirit voice. Well, let me say it differently. We have a different part of the human experience that's called the spirit voice, also called the divine voice, also called the voice of unconditional love. And often, don't get me wrong, it's not like the mind cannot love. I'm not denying that. But chances are, if you journaled a lot and you meditated and observed a lot, like the last few videos said, you're probably noticing that some of your thought patterns are not all of unconditional love. Welcome to being a human. But we do have another voice that we have forgotten about. It's often called your spirit voice, the divine mind voice, the intuitive voice. And that voice is unconditional love. And a lot of this other work of meditation, observable journaling, is about moving the junk out of the way so we can begin to hear that voice or begin to be open to that voice, because that voice exists, called your spirit voice. That voice exists. Now, let's talk a bit about that voice versus the ego and what the hell I mean by that. So when we're born into the human experience, we have a part of us that is unconditional love. Call it God, call it spirit, call it the divine, call it the universe. We're not a body on planet Earth floating around the sun, all to our own. We have a GPS system that our creator gave us. And everyone who's watching this video in their life has had at least one intuitive nudge. Question is, where did that come from? Where did that little intuition come that said, do that versus do that? Do that versus do that? And maybe it came as a gut feeling. Maybe it came as goosebumps. Maybe it came as an inner knowing. Maybe you saw a picture. Maybe you actually heard something. It doesn't matter how you received it, but we've all experienced an intuitive nudge. Intuition is a gift from spirit. Now, there's something between intuition and the fear voice. And this can be a really interesting tripping point for a lot of people. The intuitive voice is a gentle, loving, repetitive voice that says, go this way, go this way, go this way. Versus the fear voice is loud and it's screaming. It says, ah, completely different. The origin of that gentle, intuitive voice is the divine part of you. I think of it like being plugged into the heavens. And being plugged into the heavens, there's nothing like it when you really wake up that intuitive voice. But in order for us to hear the intuitive voice, we have to get to know the ego voice. So what's the ego? So let me back up. We are born with this divine spirit voice that I just described, and it's all who we are at birth. That is who we are to our true innate beingness. And that's why we love babies and children and puppies, because they represent to us more of that spirit voice. But then as we get older, what's called the ego gets louder. The ego is all fear-based thoughts that simply forgot that you were unconditional love. So a good visual that I have is we have like this, what's called the ring of fear, or all these ego-based thought illusions. These ego-based thought illusions are blocking the spirit, which is in the middle. The spirit is the love, the infinite presence of who you are. The ego is not a bad thing, a right thing, or wrong thing, but it's part of human conditioning. And the ego will always take you past and future. The ego loves to think of the body as real, but we all know the body is a temporary experience. And the ego is the thing that's driving you nuts. The ego is the thing that makes you sick. The ego that is the thing that out of nowhere brings financial collapse for people. The ego is the only reason that you have issues in your relationship. So you're like, Divi, it's super simple. Get rid of the ego. And it's actually not that simple. We have to go in with a flashlight, investigate the ego's thought systems, learn different tools and techniques. And the more of those tools and techniques we have in our tool belt, the more we shift through the ego and get to the ring of sun in the middle. So we're going to think of it like the ring of fear on the outside and the sun in the middle. So we take the flashlight, we go to the ring of fear. We're like, oh, what is that? What is that? We learn a tool and technique, and we pop through it into spirit. And the ego grabs us back and takes us back out. I didn't say this in an earlier video, but it's super important for me to say. At a certain point in this journey, the ego is going to say, get out, stop, this is a waste of time, she's crazy. Completely normal. How many times or how many people do you know that start the gym in January and then quit? It's the same with this work. I'm not here to convince you into anything. I'm not here to sell you $1 billion product. I'm here to simply, hopefully help you live a happier, more joyful life. It's super simple. The ego is going to call you and go, this is completely insane, as she lost her mind. That may or may not happen to you. But the ego is the reason that we want to meditate and we don't. The ego is the reason that we keep spinning. All of those. And you have to just keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. And then eventually you'll pop through that ring of fear. Makes sense? And then you'll come back out and then go back through it. Sounds good? Amazing. So the ego and then there's spirit. Spirit is unconditional love. The ego is past, present, past, future. Spirit is present. The ego is body, past, future. Spirit is essence, not of this body. Spirit is just love, right? Super simple. Super simple. Now we have to start practicing it. So again, whether you work with me in person or online, the more you practice these tools, the more you settle in back to love, which is spirit. Amazing. Awesome. I'll see you next video.